George? George? Mr. Yancey? Did he drop off?
He did. He said he would be back as soon as he could.
Okay. Donald Brooks, District 3, at my house, 9258 Everett Road, Unionville, Virginia. District 4 would be Ms. Julie.
Yes, this is Julie Zellmaker. I'm at 34104 Indiantown Road in Locust Grove, Virginia.
And District 5, Mr. Hutchison.
This is Jim Hutchison, District 5, at home at 525 Harrison Court, Locust Grove, Virginia, Orange County.
Okay, this is going to determine that we do have a quorum, one absent at the present, but expecting to join us, Mr. Yancey from District 2.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Excuse me, I believe
ma'am.
Mr. Yancey may be back. I see his name in the gallery.
I'm on here, but I can't get my picture up.
That's fine. Well, Mr. Yancey, would you state your name and your location, please?
I'm George D. Yancey. I'm Commissioner from District 2, and I'm located at my home at 16170 Cox Mill Road, Gordonsville, Virginia.
Thank each and every one of you all for that. I think so. Also in attendance, we have Mr. Mark Johnson, Board Representative from District 1. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, would you state your district and your address, please, or your location?
I'm District 1, and I'm at my home at 13451 Albano Road, Barbersville.
Okay, thank you. I think we also have the newly appointed county administrator with us, if that's correct.
I am here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you take this opportunity just to introduce yourself and share some words of encouragement, enlightenment for the commission, please?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I am Ted Voorhees, County Administrator. I guess we could all use a few words of enlightenment and encouragement during these unusual times. I'm not sure that I have anything unique to say, but I certainly want to say hello and recognize that I appreciate staff and the Board of Supervisors giving me as warm a welcome as you can do from a socially distanced and virtual distance away. It's as I put to somebody who I spoke with earlier today, it's coming into a new organization in this sort of set of circumstances is a little bit like playing flashlight tag in somebody else's neighborhood. But with that, I certainly want to encourage the Planning Commission to continue with your mission, to continue to support the growth and development of Orange County in keeping with the character that we are striving to sustain and maintain. Our work goes on. We will persevere no matter what we have to do to get there. We'll keep working on it. And I appreciate you working with our technology here to keep going forward. And I'll do the best I can to support the staff, to support you and support the board as we move Orange County forward.
Well, we thank you for your time. I do understand you may drop off. We won't consider that anything negative. We know that you have a lot to do. Any commissioners have any questions or comments for the new county administrator?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
With that said, we welcome you again and thank you for willingly trying to help us out in Orange County. I think we also have with us the Assistant County Attorney, Mr. Eric Lansing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Good to see you, Donald.
Good to see you. It has been a moment and a minute for all of us getting together. But we're gonna move right along as we normally do. I'm gonna make one announcement. I'm gonna make this announcement again at the beginning of our public hearing, but just before we move, I'm gonna make this announcement. The public hearing that's scheduled for tonight, we will not be voting. We will listen to the applicant and the county. And then on June the 4th, we will then take a vote and we will take written comments up until June the 3rd at 5 p.m. We will make this announcement again, but I want to make it at the onset. And anybody that has some interest, you can look at this on the YouTube channel. And if you want to find this information out, we would encourage you to look at our website. Thank you for that moment of brief announcement. Now we ask for the approval of agenda.
So recommend approval of the agenda.
Is there,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
Mr. Chairman, before you all vote, I just want to note one correction for the agenda and the description of the public hearing for tonight. I noticed today a typo on that. This parcel and the text in our staff report is correct, but there will be a correction announced for that too when we get to that part of the meeting. This parcel is actually designated as agricultural 1 on the recommended future land use map in orange. So that would be one slight correction to the agenda.
You know
okay,
what,
with all
one-
that in mind
thing-
and noting that correction, do you so, Mr. Hutchinson, still recommend approval of the agenda?
George,
Approval as modified.
just one thing, George, or Donald, sorry. We should also just note that we are holding this meeting. Note on the agenda. I apologize for not noticing this earlier. Just to add that we're holding this meeting in conformity with the continuity of government ordinance that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors.
Can you add that to the minutes in the form you would like it for the next meeting, and I'll sign off on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other
Mr.
additions or
Chairman, I
corrections?
recommend approval as modified.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Brooks.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The agenda has been approved. You should have received in your packet the approval of the minutes of the January 2nd meeting. I solicit approval of those minutes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval as they're written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposition? Motion carried unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, just for the minutes, who made the second?
Jason Patel did.
Mr.
Okay, thank
Patel.
you.
Sandra, did you get any public comment that was written to you for this meeting, or does anyone have any public comment that was given to them?
To date, we have received one letter of comment from Benjamin and Laura Loveday. And I believe
Is
you
that
have
pertaining
received
to
that
the-
by email.
Sandra, is that pertaining to the public hearing or just in general?
Oh, I'm sorry, that does pertain to the public hearing.
Okay, hang on to that if you will till we get to the public hearing. I was just wondering if you had anything on public comment.
No, I
Okay.
haven't.
Okay, Any other commissioner? Okay, we're gonna move right into our public hearing. SUP 20-01. Prior to that, though, again, we will not vote tonight. There will be no vote taken tonight. We will receive all public comment until June the 3rd at 5 p.m. to close of business, and we will take this issue up again on June the 4th, our regular scheduled meeting at 6 o'clock. Anyone that has a comment they would like to make, please put it in written form and send it to the county by the date stated, June the 3rd, 5 p.m. If you have any questions of where to send it, what email to use, look at the Orange County website. There's plenty of information there to indicate where it needs to go. Okay, this is how we're going to do this public hearing tonight. We're going to ask that the county give a statement. I understand the applicants have folks here. And then we're going to ask that we just notify that we got letters. We'll leave them all until the end. And then we're going to ask commissioners if they have any questions. If no problem with that order, we would ask that county go ahead with their statements, please.
Chairman Brooks, I have just one quick question, if I may.
Yes,
when you
sir.
say when you say everyone sends in written comments, that's a comment for the public, is that correct? Not for the commissioners? We go
That's
ahead and
correct.
make comments
You
here.
can
Okay,
make your
great.
you can make your comments tonight. Right.
Okay, great.
That
Thank you,
that
Chairman.
statement was for the public comment side of the public hearing.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You can send written ones too if you want, Mr. Capel.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, Mrs. Thornton, please.
All right, well, just to provide some overview and background for this application, this special use permit application was submitted by Mid-Atlantic Pyrotechnics Art Guild Incorporated to allow pyrotechnics testing and manufacturing on a parcel 50 acres or greater in size pursuant to section 70-303, item 23 of the Orange County Zoning Code. Section 70-1 defines pyrotechnics testing / manufacturing as the operations of a nonprofit entity engaged in the production and testing of fireworks, whereby the entity is licensed and regulated pursuant to 18 USC Chapter 40. The applicant represents a club which currently consists of approximately 80 members and proposes to conduct once monthly weekend events April through October, during which members produce and display fireworks on site. The September event typically includes an open house to which the public would be invited, as I understand that. Members would either dry camp on site or stay at a local accommodation during each of the weekend events. The materials indicate that the applicant has existed as an organized entity since 2012, which has operated in Orange County since its inception. And the application materials also indicate that a hobbyist fireworks club has been active in Orange for the past 40 years. The area in which this property is located is generally characterized by low-density agricultural and residential use, although Clearview Greenhouses is located on an adjacent parcel east of the subject property. There's a small residential parcel slightly over 1 acre in area surrounded by an adjacent parcel also owned by Cardinal Garden and Gun, excuse me, situated north of the subject property. So it's across the lane, it's across Wolfhook Lane from the subject property. There is a 2.39 acre parcel owned by Cardinal Garden and Glove adjacent to Wolfhook Lane, which is the site of a single family dwelling and several farm structures. The topography is generally gently rolling, although there are steeper slopes adjacent to various water features on the property. And just for the sake of complete transparency, I did not walk or drive the entire acreage included in the property. It appears that the current zoning assigned to this parcel is its historic zoning. Concerning community input, the public hearing notice for this application was advertised in the May 7 and 14 editions of the Orange County Review. Adjoining property owners were sent notices via certified mail on May 8th. The public hearing notice sign was posted on the property on May 13th. And while I was on the site, I did meet and talk with two neighbors. At the time the staff report was written, no public comments had been received related to the application, but the staff had fielded some inquiries regarding the proposal. Application Review Committee comments were solicited via email on January 30th in anticipation of an earlier public hearing date, which in the absence of COVID-19, I think we certainly would have heard this earlier. On February 7th, Mark Wood of the Virginia Department of Transportation communicated that he had conducted a site visit to inspect the entrance and site distance and that he had no objections. He further stated that VDOT would not be requiring a land use permit in association with the public use. There were no comments submitted by Orange County Fire and EMS or Orange County Economic Development, and none were submitted by the Orange Volunteer Fire Company. The property is situated in an expansive area zoned agricultural near Lahore. And as previously noted, the area is characterized by agricultural and low-density residential uses. As I mentioned earlier, Clearview Greenhouses is located on an adjacent parcel. I know the application indicates that the property is used for cattle grazing. I did not observe cattle on the subject parcel during the site visit, but I did see cattle, horses, and chicken coops on nearby properties. Concerning the comprehensive plan compliance, the subject property is located in an expansive area which is designated Agricultural 1 on the recommended future land use map. The plan states that the purpose of the A1 land use category is to protect the rural, agricultural, historic, and conservation areas of the county by preserving open space, limiting population, and allowing little or no development other than agricultural and forestal enterprises, farm markets, homesteads, and larger estates. The proposed use would be intermittent and require little in the way of additional infrastructure over time, thereby preserving open space and at this point, limiting population growth. The proposed use would be expected to create intermittent noise impacts on surrounding neighbors, and conditions are proposed to limit such impacts by limiting hours of discharge. Providing that the applicant and property owner adhere to all federal, state, and local regulations pertaining to storage of explosive and fireworks displays, no other adverse impacts are anticipated. I would note that the decibel information that was included in the application package, I think was very instructive concerning noise impacts. With respect to environmental, scenic, and historic assets, there are no significant historic assets or unusually significant scenic assets in close proximity of the proposed site. The parcel does include 2 ponds, 3 streams, and inclusions of both moderate and high shrink swell soils. Along Pamunkey Creek, which forms most of the western property boundary, wetlands and floodplain areas exist, and that portion of the property also lies within the Lake Orange Dam inundation zone. There are steeper slopes around the water features, as I mentioned previously. Provided that the applicant thoroughly clears all debris from the property following events and prevents trash from entering the creek, there should be no adverse impacts on sensitive environmental features associated with the proposed use. The proposal should be generally compatible with the surrounding land uses, provided the applicant adheres to proposed conditions which generally speaking would formalize practices the applicant already observes with respect to their events. Of course, the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors may modify, remove, or otherwise edit the conditions proposed with this report, as well as add other conditions as deemed appropriate. There are no anticipated significant impacts to services provided by the county in association with the proposed activity. No significant physical impacts are expected in association with the proposed use, although some additional tax revenue would be generated by visitors to the area. Reflecting, I think, VDOT's comments regarding the transportation network in the area, no significant impacts on transportation infrastructure are anticipated based on the traffic estimates provided of 25 to 30 vehicles per event. As I stated earlier, VDOT expressed no concerns about the proposed use. There are, on page 9 of your staff report, several conditions proposed for this special use. Number 1 really references the information included in the submittal. The special use permit is to allow pyrotechnics / testing / manufacturing and once monthly club events as described in the application with cover letter dated December 17, 2019, submitted by Mid-Atlantic Pyrotechnics Arts Guild. As you can continue your discussion, it may be more appropriate to outline some of the specifics of the activity as described, but this first condition was intended to say that you are permitting activities as described in the application. Number 2, activities will be conducted on site in accordance with locations depicted on figure F1 site plan, which would be attached to any permit. Number 3, an Orange County fireworks display permit approved by county administration will be required for each event. Number 4, notification signs will be posted a minimum of 1 week prior to each event and removed at the end of each event weekend. Number 5, discharge of fireworks shall not occur before 1 p.m. When school is in session, discharge shall cease at 9 p.m. on school nights. Otherwise, discharge shall cease at 11 p.m. Number 6, aerial salute and any other loud items may not be discharged later than 30 minutes after sunset. Number 7, debris shall be removed from the property and properly disposed of at the end of each event. Number 8, any explosive storage on the property must be permitted in accordance with Virginia Department of Fire Programs regulations. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Sandra, is there any questions or are there any questions from the commissioners to staff?
How do you want to go through this, Mr. Chairman, by district or?
Well, I was kind of thinking we'd do everything by district, starting with the first district, going down through all 5, if you have questions or comments. So, Mr. Capel?
I have a couple questions. So, item number 5. So it says, shall not occur before 1 p.m. When school is in session, discharge shall cease at 9. Does that imply that in the summer they go to 11, or they could go to 11 p.m.?
Yes. This was intended to indicate that on no date shall discharge occur before 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And on school nights, they would stop at 9 p.m. and otherwise they could go till 11.
But not work.
I mean,
nights.
that's what that, Yeah, that is what that says. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
Jason-
Mhm.
Jason, as long as we're on that subject, because I had a similar question, we don't know right now what's going to happen to school years. And we don't know whether there's going to be summer school at all this year. And if there is, does that apply to the kids that are going to summer school during the week? Plus, there's discussion whether there's going to be school on Saturday because of trying to keep the number of kids in each classroom down. They're going to have to expand the number of days. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I'm just raising the issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I bring it up because, people work too. And
Yeah.
so some people work and get up very early, and fireworks have a tendency to send some pets into the stratosphere with barking and everything else. So I just wanted to understand what was meant by that. And then the other question I had was regarding number 6. I saw in the package that a salute is defined as 75 grams, or maybe it said such as a salute. But I was curious what was meant by any other loud items, because it seems to me that almost all of them will be loud. So I was just curious how that was going to be defined.
I think that might be a question. We have representatives of the applicant participating in this meeting so that they can
Okay.
do a bit of presentation and also answer questions. I was just taking that description from the application.
Yeah, no problem. And then my last question is, so I don't remember when we looked at a similar application previously, but is this the same parcel that they've been operating on?
No.
Because we looked, this is a completely different parcel. Okay, is this the same club as before? And has that club moved, or do we now have 2 of these clubs in the county?
I was not aware that there was another club operating, so
Are
perhaps.
we able to respond, or should we wait?
Just, if they could hang on just a second, and Jason, you hang on to your questions, and maybe they'll be
Yep.
better at the end. So,
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'll hold it until the applicants come up. Thank you.
sure. And what I
Mr.
would say
Chairman?
to the applicants, that's kind of make notes of what the commissioners say, and you kind of know what they want answers to, if you don't mind, please. All right, Mr. Yancey, you have anything for the county, or any comments at this present?
Yes, I do, Chairman Brooks. I took the extra steps. I made contact with Sheriff Mark Amos to determine whether or not his department had had any types of complaints or issues with this applicant and its realm of operation. His response was that they were a first-class operation, that they were very supportive of Orange County, and especially Orange County Fire Company, to the point that when they have training sessions for their participants, they hold that at the Orange County Fire Department facility, and they allow firemen from various county departments to attend and learn about their fireworks and the issues that they face with that. I also took the opportunity to contact Bucky Yancey, who is also an active member and a full disclosure, a relative of mine. And he said they have been dealing with them for a number of years. That they also were a first-class operation in terms of performance. They do send a fire truck or a water truck to the facility to utilize as a backup from time to time. They have not had any issues whatsoever in dealing with them in terms of mishaps or safety issues. The thing he disclosed to me that was somewhat impressive was that in the realm of the participants in this, we have people of significant capability. Some of them are scientists, some of them are chemical engineers, some of them are, one is a HVAC person. So you've got a variety of participants, but at the same time, it sounds like to me, you've got people that have skill sets that can manage the risk factors of setting off fireworks and can manage the risk of using powder in that reference. So I'd like for that to be a note of information for the remainder of the commissioners at this time. And I thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have no questions or comments at this time. Julie, do you have any? Thank you, muted.
Yeah, she's muted.
Yeah, unmute. Still not hearing you.
Julie, if you can,
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
Now we got you.
Okay. When staff spoke with the neighbors, did they have any comments?
The one lady was concerned. I think she was somewhat concerned about traffic on the lane, potentially, and I think noise too, although she did say that maybe the noise wasn't, I can't remember now what she told me that they thought, you know, that it might be when she had heard it before. I mean, I think there seemed to be some concern. The other neighbor did not express any, he came up while I was talking with her and he didn't really express any, he didn't ask any questions to my recollection and he didn't express any concerns. I think the lady who, you know, was a somewhat older individual was somewhat concerned about traffic and noise.
Okay. And when they heard this before, this is the same location that they had been operating before?
I don't think so. I don't believe so. I think maybe the applicant could address that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Other than the fact that I think this is a well-written application, very thorough. I've read the input from the one input we got from the public that Sandra sent us, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss that later on. Other than that, I've got no comments at this time.
Okay, thank the commissioners. Now, we would ask that the applicant would come, and if the applicant would, when you come forward, I guess is probably a bad terminology. When you start speaking, state your name, what position you hold with the company, and we would ask that you take no more than 15, 20 minutes. Your application is very, very detailed. So we just need you to sell this project, I guess is the best way to put it.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might add, I think that maybe for the record, any speaker needs to state their location as well. I think that may be the case.
Please state your location and your name and any affiliation that you have with the company or any of, please. And when you state your name, state it slowly and clearly so we can get it. First applicant, please.
Hello, my name is Carol.
Hello.
My husband Eddie, sitting right here next to me. We are members of the MAPAG group. We have been a member since its inception. We are also the owners of the property on Wolf Oak Lane, listed under Cardinal Garden and Gun.
Ms. Hostetler?
Yes,
Ms. Hostetler, I hate to interrupt you. Just give me your address and location, please.
I'm coming to you today from 2006 Mount Forest Drive in Houston, Texas. We would
Okay.
love to be in Virginia, but we just can't right now.
We don't hold that against you. We just basically just need this for record keeping purposes.
Certainly, certainly.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
I'm just going to take a few minutes of your time and then we'll start to address the questions as well as some things that we would like to say. There's two other MAPAG members joining us this evening, and that's Dave Stoddard, who is our MAPAG president. It's not our intent to have Dave speak, but he is here for the meeting. We also have Dr. John Steinberg, who is joining us. John is a founding member of the club and an advisor to the board. And I'll talk more about John in just a few minutes. We have given you lengthy descriptions of what we do and who we are, but we want to make sure that you also understand that MAPAG is one of 25 regional fireworks clubs in the United States. There's also an overall international guild. Part of our mission is to keep hobbyist fireworks for the next generation. Safety, chemistry, artistry are all aspects of what we try to teach and to keep alive today. We have approximately 80 members, most of which come from the Mid-Atlantic region. However, we have people join us from as far north as Maine down to Florida. Not every meeting, but they certainly try to make it at least once during the year. We've already talked about the fact that we've made application. So what I'd like to do briefly is to address the three items which were brought up previously. Obviously, we make every attempt to make it an early evening on a school night. We don't know what the new normal is going to look like. If that means that children are going to school all summer long, we would certainly respect the fact that Thursday night is a school night, even though it's summertime. The next question was about a club operating in the area and the site. MAPAG has been in existence since 2012. We are not a new club. We are just moving to a new site. My husband and I purchased this property and have invested heavily in restoring it to its former self. It had been neglected for several years. Cattle can now be grazed on the property. Sandra may not have seen them because, as you noted, you do go downhill from the point of the gate. And throughout this parcel and the one next to it, which we also utilize and own, there are numerous paddocks that are available for the cattle to graze. Renewed Pastures does an excellent job of rotating the cattle from area to area so as not to overgraze and to provide nourishment to the soil as well. So we are a club that has existed in Orange County since 2012. We are just moving to a new location. And I hope that answers the questions that have been brought up thus far. Earlier this week, we did receive the staff report, and it summarized the more important aspects of our application. And we do believe we were thorough in following the application process. However, in reading the summary, we believe that we may have created a few misconceptions for those that are not as familiar with pyrotechnics as we are. To that end, I would like to ask Dr. John Steinberg to discuss some aspects of the use and site design section of the proposed conditions review. Dr. Steinberg is a principal member of the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, the Technical Committee on Pyrotechnics, and is one of those who writes the fireworks code, which are enforced in Virginia, which at this time is NFPA 1123. Within the Maryland State Fire Marshal's Office, he serves as the principal author of the pyrotechnic licensing exams for the state of Maryland. So we've asked John to address just a couple of points and maybe clarify some things. John? You need to unmute yourself, John. You need to unmute yourself, John. You're still muted.
Dr. Steinberg, you can unmute yourself by taking your mouse to the left, the bottom left side of your screen, and you'll see a microphone. There you go.
Thank you. I've been instructed by an attorney on a technical aspect there, much to my benefit. All right,
Sure, the last time.
this is John Steinberg, unmuted, Steinberg. I have been asked to serve as an advisor to the board of MAPAG, the board of directors of MAPAG. My location is 3944 Carthage, Carthage Road in Randallstown, Randallstown, Maryland, 21133. Sandra, do you need anything else on background?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I was brought in as an advisor to the board of MAPAG because of my technical expertise. As Ms. Hofstetter noted, I write the Fire Code 1123. I write the licensing exams for the state of Maryland, serve on an advisory committee on explosives in the fire marshal's office, et cetera. When I reviewed the proposed condition staff report summary and the application submitted, I noted 4 points of clarification that I would like to address. And I will tell you ahead of time that my remarks will take less than 5 minutes. The first is under the terms of the special use. It is my understanding the special use permit addresses the testing and manufacturing of fireworks, whereas the permitting process addresses the displays. But for clarification, the first 2 points are that if item 1 were noted to allow the conduct of pyrotechnics testing, manufacturing, and displays, anyone reading the document would have a clearer understanding. The second of 4 points is the definition of events. As you stated, Ms. Thornton, you're already aware that these events typically cover a 4-day weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And with the restriction on school night curfew, were there a rain out on a Saturday night, it is conceivable that the firework display, if concluded by 9 p.m., could be moved to Sunday. So the second of 4 points is that an event should specifically or explicitly state these events are 4-day weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and do include fireworks displays. The third of 4 points is, I understand that sometimes too much information is a bad thing, and I have in front of me both the application submitted and the conclusion drawn. NFPA 1123 code provides an integral limit on noise production by limiting salutes in terms of their size. Code has to be enforceable. A fire marshal showing up isn't necessarily going to weigh things. I heard the mention of 75 grams, et cetera. So my advice to the club, given that noise was a concern and loud is a very subjective term, given that all fireworks displays include some elements of noise, and in my experience, are conducted at night, well past 30 minutes after sunset, I propose that item 6 be reworded to state that as aerial salutes are normally part of a fireworks display, aerial salutes would be limited to salutes that do not exceed 4 inches in any dimension. I would note that this limitation is more restrictive than the NFPA code, which currently allows up to 5-inch salutes. So I think that rather than ask, like, what time was sunset? Is it 30 minutes? Is that a display? Well, it was loud to me. It wasn't loud to you. I think the easiest thing to do is to take the NFPA approach to define what produces the loudest noise, salutes, to ratchet it back 1 step, 1 dimension. For those who remember formulas for volumes, a 4-inch salute, a round ball salute, has about half of the powder that a 5-inch salute has. And the last comment on noise, I appreciate David Stoddard producing that reference table. Given that we would be doing fireworks at 500 to 1,000 feet, the noise respectively from the site of discharge would be equivalent either to riding a motorcycle or operating a lawnmower. So summary, item 6 should best be specific, enforceable, and clear to all. And I would propose to the applicant and to the Planning Commission that an agreement be made that item 6 would restrict noise by noting that no salute shall be fired at any time exceeding 4 inches in any dimension. Finally, I am somewhat sympathetic to this issue of what constitutes clearing of debris, item 7. And there are 2 issues here. One is, of course, the potential effect on a waterway. But in my experience of doing fireworks displays for some decades, including in Maryland, where we have wetland issues and creeks, and I do shows on the bay, I think it would be appropriate, unless there were specific addressable concerns, to delete item 7 and allow the private entity of the Cardinal Garden and Gun Club to negotiate with its tenant, Maypag, what constitutes adequate cleanup of the site, knowing that no one may pollute a waterway. So unless there is a specific issue that's been identified, and I'm not aware of any after fireworks displays, I think the cleanup issues probably should be a matter between landlord and tenant. I'm not aware of any hazard from the typical cardboard debris of the fireworks displays and the locations proposed on the property that would trigger a concern. And there you have it. The summary is, let's note that the event includes displays. Let's define what the events are. I would propose that we all agree to use enforceable code and limit noise by limiting salutes to 1 dimension, 1 inch lower than NFPA, and that we leave the specific language of the trash cleanup to be settled, negotiated between the landlord and the tenant, unless some specific issue related to potential water hazard is identified. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Ms. Hostetter, do you have anyone else you want to call forward?
No, sir, I don't. Thank you.
Would you prepare yourself and your group for some questions from the commission now, please?
Certainly.
Again, starting at District 1, Mr. Capel, do you have any questions for the applicant, please?
I do, yeah. So first of all, let me just preface all of my questions that I'm a big fan of fireworks. So just as I ask these questions, please, I understand, you know, what your club's about. I've got a lot of respect for it, and I'm just a general fan of fireworks. So just so you know that as I ask these questions, but I also am a fan of Orange County, and I also just want to make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that neighbors who may not know about this hearing or may have concerns, you know, that we're at least doing our best to note them and address them. So the one I'm still not clear on, is this the same club that we reviewed a permit for maybe 3 or 4 years ago in a different part of the county?
We did operate in a different part of the county. And actually, if COVID had not come along, and I mean, the intent is to move to this location because it affords us a lot more space.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I'm just trying to figure out if we've got 2 or 1 of these kind of cool pyrotechnics guilds floating around. So thank you for that. So you answered that question. So I understand that you do these displays once a month for 4 days a week. Are those the only times that you'll be doing displays?
Typically, we have club event once a month, April through October. Not everyone makes it there on Thursday. There's a very sparse crew, so often there's not much at all. Friday, more people are there. And then Saturday, obviously, we have our largest group. The rest of the year, we don't do anything as a club short of doing the fireworks like we did last year for the Orange County Orange Volunteer Fire Department Carnival.
But throughout the year, besides those club events, do people come and do perhaps testing of their pyrotechnics? Or is it only those 4 days
It's only
of those months?
at this point. The testing could be something as, I have a comet or some new stars that I want to burn on the ground to see if the color is there. That's more about testing is. It would be low noise, if any. It's
But
usually
no,
of components. It's not a display, no. We're not going to come
Okay,
in
so-
or just willy-nilly and do a display.
yeah, okay. So yeah, that's really what I'm getting at. The aerial displays that people most associate with fireworks, the ones that tend to, for some pets, as you know, I mean, not,
I
I'm
have
not
three
picking
dogs.
on you. These are,
I have three
what's that?
dogs. I have 3 dogs.
Yeah.
And not all of them care for the noise, but they stay in the house.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I understand. I'm just saying, some people have different issues. So what you're telling me is that those aerial displays, it's really limited to those 4 days for the club events.
Correct.
Or are we, and this is really for the commission, are we approving a permit that allows aerial displays anytime, or any day? So, okay.
Could I
And then,
address Commissioner's question from a regulatory point of view? I know it's analogous because I'm,
Mr. Steinberg, Mr.
But-
Steinberg,
okay.
Mr. Steinberg,
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Steinberg,
Yes,
hang on just a second. Let them
Thank
finish and I'll recognize you in just a minute. And actually, Ms. Hostella should refer to you since she's kind of handling the other side, but just so we don't have a whole lot of jumping in and out. I don't care that you speak, but I prefer that she tell you that it's okay to answer it.
Okay. Dr. Steinberg, would you address that last comment?
There you go.
thank you, Ms. Hostetter, because I wanted to hear his answer. I appreciate that.
and I appreciate the pet comment. I have a pit mix rescue that goes absolutely berserk at the sound of fireworks. The answer to that question, Commissioner Capel, is simply that, as Ms. Hostetter noted, testing might be burning a flame on the ground to see a color. There's nothing in the air and there's no noise. Any display activity requires a separate permit, so that aerial displays, things that would be noticed by the neighbors, will be strictly limited to the weekend events, April through October. There will be no noise or aerial discharge of fireworks at any other time, unless, of course, we were requested, as Ms. Hostetter noted, by a special event at a carnival, in which case we would pull a permit for a specific aerial display. So you don't have to worry about displays and the noise anytime other than those weekend events. And members are not permitted to come down of their own volition anytime other than those club events for any type of fireworks activity.
Okay, perfect. And I appreciated the answer on number 6, because I had the same concern. Loud is a pretty subjective word, and I understood the weight. That made sense to me, but I wasn't sure how in the world we would ever enforce quote loud without some sort of measurement behind it. So now I don't claim to know what a 4-inch by 4-inch mortar might do, but I do know about 3-inch because you can buy those in Tennessee. So anyways, I think those are the only questions I have. And then I have one other comment. I noticed on the site map, just a little to the north of you, it's not an adjacent property, so they wouldn't have gotten notified. I noticed that there's what appears to be a horse ring. And I'm just curious if you happen to know those folks. I looked online and I saw their last names were Lamb. And I just wondered if they actually have horses there and a horse ring, whether that causes any concern.
We do not know the new owners. That house recently sold. And if you look online, you're right, the Lambs were the previous owners, but that location is 3/4 of a mile. I've measured all the distances on the, you can do that on your Orange County mapping. That is 3/4 of a mile from the discharge site. So if you want to use the charts that were given about the noises and things like that, that's fairly far away from the discharge location.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Yancey, do you have any questions for the applicants?
Yes, Ms. Hosteller, would you be kind enough to disclose your professional background?
I have a degree in chemical engineering.
Okay. My next question is for Dave Stoddard. Mr. Stoddard, what is the composition of the other members of MAPAC?
Actually, MAPAG is a really interesting group of folks. We have 2 medical doctors, a veterinarian, probably a handful of CEOs. We have a confectioner, a couple of truck drivers, a number of programmers and software engineers. It's a really interesting group. The other thing too is from a gender standpoint, about 40% of our membership is female, which makes us kind of unusual among some of the clubs. But in fact, the female part of our club actually adds an extra element that's actually quite advantageous. And that is, some people think we're a food club. And so there's kind of a joke, come for the food and stay for the fireworks. But it actually is kind of crazy. We started out initially providing potluck dinners, and they've become gourmet affairs. It's hard to describe, but if you ever want to come by any evening around 5:30, 6 o'clock and join us, you can come in for a fantastic feast. It's something to behold, and it just happens all by itself. So that's a little bit about the makeup of the club.
All right, sir. The follow-up question to that is, how much experience and training does a new prospective member require to be given or required to take?
We teach the PGI display operator course every year. That course is actually written by Dr. John Steinberg, who can tell you a lot more about it. In fact, I'm a senior instructor for the PGI course. I've been doing it for 20 years now. We are the only organization I know of in the state of Virginia that actually conducts that particular kind of training. And it is the same training that is required in order to take and pass the Virginia Pyrotechnics exam. So we require our members to take that class. We also have other seminars that we provide on making stars, rockets, fireworks safety, display safety, magazine techniques. We actually even teach accounting for the magazine side. So it's safety is our primary focus, and anyone in the club can declare something unsafe and cause an immediate stop of anything that's going on in the field and have a discussion on the spot. We have never had an accident at any time in the club, and I don't expect we ever will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. My last question may be an odd question for Dr. Steinberg. Dr. Steinberg, do you know what Austin Powder is?
Do I know what?
Austin Powder Company?
The company, Austin Powder?
Yes.
I know of them.
Okay. They are an explosive company that operates out of Dillon, Virginia, that does underwater explosions for the DOD. And they get their product out of Maryland somewhere, and it is transported directly through Orange County on a weekly basis, multiple times. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, because they do come through the middle of our town of Orange, as well as the complete highway of US Route 15 through Orange County. But I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I was hoping you had had some experience and knowledge of the background of Austin Powder Company. Thank you very much, Mr.
I only know them in a general sense. And in Maryland, where we have our Explosives Advisory Council, there's a lot of blasting activities and a lot of explosives that come through this area. But in none of our Explosive Advisory Committee meetings have we had on our agenda anything that I'm aware of related specifically to Austin Powder. I mean, I know who they are, the explosives company. Other than that, I don't have any dealing with them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Yancey. All right, I have, relating to number 7, Ms. Hosteller, I noticed that we said that the debris shall be removed from the property and properly disposed of at the end of each event. And then I made a note here that it said that should be a agreement between the landlord and the tenant. Is that not the same people?
No, not necessarily. My husband and I would be the landlord in this case. We happen to be members of MAPAG, but we will have a formal lease agreement with MAPAG for the use of the site. And that allows us to make sure that we can put stipulations as to how cleanup needs to be done, when it needs to be done. I guess to oversimplify it, it allows us to put a little teeth in it. It is our property. If you had been out there 2 years ago when we first purchased it and you came out there now, you wouldn't even think it was the same place. We have invested heavily in getting it back into shape and making it look wonderful.
So let me say this before I make this next comment. You're exactly right on the last few sentences. I'm very familiar with the property, very familiar with the end of the county. That's where I've lived for the last almost 60 years. So I'm pretty close to what goes on there. And I helped get the hay up in adjacent farm when I was about 12 years old. So I'm pretty familiar. You have done a very good job cleaning it up. That's the reason I'm asking this to say, okay, if number 7 stays in, does that bother you?
Well, from the standpoint of you would be asking to oversee trash collection on a private property. That's what we're saying. We are going to make sure it's kept clean. That's just what we do.
So then number 7 won't bother you. You're gonna have it cleaned anyway. I'm just concerned not so much of what you do. Having also worked public safety for 30 years, I know what the public will do also, real quickly. And so I'm concerned just a tad bit with the streams and things that's close by. By no means do I think you're going to trash the property, and no means do I believe that you allow who attend to trash the property. But I think if we have number 7 in there, if somebody complains, well, they have this event and there's trash all over the place and they never clean it up, this would allow the county to take a peek in on the property and say, okay, that's either correct or not correct. Otherwise, I don't know how we would get in on the property without a whole lot of injunction there, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying that there's going to be any trash. And if there's not going to be any trash and you're going to make sure it's up, the number 7 will never be a problem.
John?
Ms. Hofstadter, may I make a comment if you would recognize?
Sure.
Am I following I want to make sure I follow the right procedure, Commissioner Brooks.
You're fine, go ahead.
Yeah, in writing code from a regulatory perspective, hearing the county's interest, the word that causes me concern is the word properly, because that's huge in terms of open to interpretation. But where number 7, debris shall be removed from the property and the area maintained clean at the end of each event to the subject to the satisfaction of county authorities, I would have no trouble with 7. It was the word properly that hung me up, if that's okay with the Hofstadters.
Fine, that's fine.
Okay, I'm happy with that word. If that word bothers you, I see what you're saying. I mean, that doesn't necessarily bother me, but you're not trying to get rid of number 7.
I would advise them as a board advisor. And the reason I was concerned is whenever you say properly in connection with explosives, you start opening up this, that, and the other. And what we're talking about here is trash and debris and cardboard. We're not talking about the firework testing manufacturing, which is separate and not near the water area. So yes, if number 7 said debris shall be removed from the property at the end of each event to the subject to the satisfaction of county authorities, I would not advise MAPAG to disagree with that. Ms. Thornton, did I say that slowly and clearly enough, ma'am?
I got it. Yeah, thank you.
Sandra, while they are, you have any problem with that being changed, Sandra?
No, I don't. I was going to
Okay.
recommend that we not remove that provision completely, but I don't have any problem with the rewording.
Okay. Last question. When do you all expect to have your first event? What's the best case scenario for you to have your first event?
Well, the best case scenario would be to have the SUP. I would say sometime later this summer. I really do not think that we're going to be able to pull anything together in a very short period of time. It may not be until August or September, simply because of the whole COVID thing. We had, a beehive of activity trying to get the property ready, and there's a lot that needs to be done for the group in order for us to meet there. So probably August or September. August, I would say, realistically.
Thank you. District 4, Julie, do you have any questions or comments? Are you muted again?
Yeah, I just was wondering, with your campers, do you have like a number of campers or a limit on how many people camp? And will they be camping only on these weekends or other times?
They would be only camping on the weekend. And it varies. We probably have 6 members to 8 members that regularly bring their campers. We probably have the same amount that tent camp, and they're only there for the event.
And when you host these events, do you schedule them like a year in advance, and post them on your website, or how do you typically get the information out there?
Well, typically we try to decide on it in January or February, simply because there are a lot of conflicts within the group. There are other meetings, other events that take place that we try to work around. But those would be posted on our website, and in usually January, February at the latest.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, District 5.
Well,
Any questions or comments, sir?
being last, it's nice because people ask most of the questions ahead of me, so that makes it well. I also, we live at Lake of the Woods, so we were privileged to hear your fireworks over the past year at your other location. Specifically, let me go to page 11 of your application on parking. And where you state the parking is normally for cattle grazing. For larger events such as the September event, we would designate a larger area to be used for guests. There's a design plot later on there that shows different locations of the proposed pavilion. There's no page number on it. And it does show the parking area, but it does not show anything on a larger parking area where that would be expanded to and how large it would be.
Well, I think that we would have to assess what would be available. There is another part of our property that may or may not be on this parcel that could be utilized. We just have to check drainage and depending on the weather, and we certainly don't want to create any
I
problems.
mean, without arbitrary decisions, I'd almost like to see a designated area that you've researched that's specified for the expansion of parking, particularly when you mentioned it's in the September area, which you have a larger display and larger attendance.
Okay, we can certainly do
Can
that.
you do that?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Back to Julie's question, and I understand it's kind of tied into a couple questions on advertising as to when you're going to do this. There's pros and cons, I think, on doing that. But one question, when you did these displays before, were there arbitrary citizens that came in and watched and parked cars and stopped on the road and actually watched these displays go off?
No, we did have neighbors that would have get-togethers, and so they had cars at their particular site, but no, we did not have people parking along the side of the road.
Did people show up into the area outside of neighbors to watch and sit on blankets or whatever? I don't know.
Not that I'm aware. And and for the September event, we did hire off-duty law enforcement to make sure that cars did not park outside of, outside, and that the gate was kept secure.
Okay, thank you. Because I think advertising on the negative side lets a lot of people know that you're going to do it and where you're going to do it, and that may in fact be counterproductive.
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate Mr. Steinberg's comments on dimension of using the NFPA requirements of 1 inch less on the 4-inch. Because I have real questions on when you develop stuff, how do you know what the decibel level is going to be when you fire it off the first time? So I think that that's a pretty good solution. Okay. The number 7, and I concur with Chairman Brooks, because there's more trash than there is fireworks debris. I think that I'm not sure you could find all of it. The waterway is one issue, but the county needs to be assured you're going to have campers and food, all sorts of porta potties and stuff out there, that's all cleaned up properly or improperly. I don't know how to read that word, but to make sure that it's done right. So I think the fix on that is appropriate. Other than that, I think all the other questions that I had have been asked. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, Board of Supervisors representative from District 1, you have any questions? Mr. Johnson, you have any questions for the applicant? Does not. No mute, no questions. He can't get on. Mr. Lansing, do you have anything? Mr. Lansing, do you
Chairman.
have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I like that defeat sign there, Mr. Johnson.
Sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. I was having a trouble finding the screen. It had disappeared on me. No, I did not have any comments.
Okay, all right. We just want to make sure. Does any other commissioner have anything that's burning that they forgot when they went down their list? If not, we'll put the applicant at ease. Okay, I do have something for Sandra. Noting everything that we heard here, number 7, you did say that was to your satisfactory?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I do have a number 9, and I don't know how to tell you to put it in here. I think law would take care of it. But I was reading something today that said that in the event that these things can go forward, it does appear for the next couple of years, we will have some type of, and maybe Mr. Langston can help, we have some type of order about social distancing, how many people can be at a place for square yards or whatever. If there's something we can put in there to say that, and that if we approve this, they would have to abide by that, just as a caveat. I don't know that this is even permitted right now. It's gonna be my first question. Eric, Mr. Lansing?
Can I follow up on that, Mr.
Wondering
Brooks?
whether you're wondering whether the fireworks activity itself would violate any current executive orders?
Right, if we said, and I know we can't today, but by 2 Thursdays away, and they want to August or September start, can they start then based on what we have in place now? No, not the future, but now.
It's a good question. I'll tell you what, I can take a look at the executive orders we have right now that are in place
Okay.
for Governor Northam and find out the answer to that. But one thing we could do regardless is, to the end of what you're asking for, we could just say that a condition would be compliance with any executive orders in place that relate to the protection against coronavirus. And that would just, I mean, that would be that, in fact, regardless of what the executive orders say, that would be the way to address that, because these executive orders have been constantly changing and they'll definitely continue to change.
And the
Mr.
reason I
Lansing,
asked while I got your attention, while I got your attention, Mr. Lansing, is that because so often I've heard that these executive orders are not to, the people are violating them, and I'm just trying to make sure we get everything in place that will make the applicant not be unduly harassed by government or not understanding what our intent is.
Yeah, that's a good question. From my memory of the executive orders that I've read, even the strictest of them that are largely no longer in place, I don't think they're going to impact this. But I'll take another look at Governor Northam's orders and look into that and give you a firmer answer in just a few minutes if you want.
Well, you can do it between now and the next meeting will be sufficient.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions based on what I asked from the applicant or the county? Okay, at this
Chairman
time,
Brooks?
we're gonna go ahead and close the public. Well, yes.
Chairman
Yes.
Brooks? Are we
called
going to
me?
have any,
Excuse me.
yeah, this
Yes.
is, sorry, this is Jason Capel. Are we going to have any discussion about the
Okay,
comments from the letter that we received? Or are we going to do some discussion after? What are the next steps?
So
I mean,
here's
I have
what I
a
intend on
couple.
doing with all the comments.
Yeah.
Here's what I intend on doing with all the comments, to receive them all at the same time during the public comment read-a-thon, I'm gonna call it, when they're read out, or we have them at one time. And then we'll go through them, and then we'll make our determination then where we're really going to vote on the issue in June, or we're going to postpone it or whatever. But I don't want to comment on some and not all. I want them all, the public comment, to come in one time, like we typically do at any other meeting. All the public comment comes in at one time. If we have written, we read those first, if you can recall. Then we have the verbal that come up, but it's all done at one time, and that's what I intend to do here. You already have it, so you'll be able to know what it is. And I would ask the county, as you get them, forward them to us.
Yeah, we will. That was our intention, to send them as they
Okay.
come.
Okay.
Have
And
the applicants seen those comments as well?
They have not.
Okay.
Well, that was
I
going
mean,
to be my
normal-
next question. That was going to be my next question, Mr. Capel, to Eric. Help me out here. Do we have to, or should we forward these comments to the applicants also?
I mean, it certainly wouldn't be a bad idea, and it certainly wouldn't hurt, but the continuity of government ordinance that we're using, you know what, I'm just going to read it out loud if you want. For any matters requiring a public hearing, public comment may be solicited by electronic means in advance and shall also be solicited through telephonic or other electronic means during the course of the electronic meeting. All such public comments will be provided to members of the public entity, the Planning Commission, at or before the electronic meeting and made part of the record for such meeting. In the alternative, and okay, here's what it's describing the way we're doing it. The public entity, the Planning Commission, may decide to open the public hearing, which is what we're doing, until the next meeting and accept public comments via email or US mail, which comments will be made a part of the minutes of the meeting and shall be read into the record prior to a public entity vote on the matter. So it doesn't address whether you have to send it to the applicant, but any record that you get is foilable. So it's a public record anyway. You may as well just send it to the applicants if you're interested in it.
Mr.
So,
Chairman,
Sandra, yes,
can I
yes.
normally, if this were, the public hearing that we would normally have, the applicants would hear the comments because the people would be there speaking, and they would then have an understanding perhaps of some of the concerns of the neighbors, and they may actually decide that they might want to change some things based on those comments. So I actually think it would be important for them to understand the concerns of the public. And the reason I bring that up is I heard a couple comments about this being private property, and I'm a big private property advocate, but some of your activities go beyond your property line, noise being one. And, I want to make sure that we're addressing that, because things that go beyond the property line are concerns of people on the adjacent properties and wherever those things may go. And I have a similar, I'm less concerned about trash cleanup on the subject property, because I'm quite certain they'll be very interested in cleaning trash up. And I'm more concerned about debris from aerial fireworks that may be blown on adjacent properties, and what recourse those adjacent landowners might have for that debris. And I'd be much more concerned about the adjacent property debris being cleaned up, if there is any, and I know there wouldn't always be, than the property itself. That's all I have.
Ms. Thornton, would you please forward all the information that comes in as public comment as expeditiously as possible to the applicants?
I will send, at the same time as we send them to the commissioners, I'll forward them. I was about to make the same comment that or observation that Mr. Capel made, and that is that if this were a regular public hearing, everyone in attendance would be hearing the comments at the same time. So yes, we certainly will
Right.
send them to the applicant.
I think that was the intent of everybody, that the applicant get all the information so they can be best served and not blindsided by information when they arrive for the next meeting or participate in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, do I need a motion, Mr. Lansing, to continue this until June the 4th, or can we just do it by?
I don't think it needs a motion. It's essentially an automatic way of happening under the ordinance, but it wouldn't hurt to have a motion, so you may as well.
I solicit a motion to continue this public hearing SUP 20-01 to our June 4th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second that motion. This is George Yancey, District 2.
Moved by Mr. Hutchinson, second by Mr. Yancey. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We want to thank you, Mrs. Hosteller, Mr. Hosteller, for participating. We aim to talk to you on June the 4th.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, it appears we have no work session, no new business, and no old business. Is that correct? So
Yes,
we're
sir.
at Mr. Mark Johnson. Okay, we're at Mark Johnson, our District 1 Supervisor and our Board Liaison for comment at this time, please.
Now that I've found my mic switch and can unmute myself, I don't really have any comments. This is the first Planning Commission meeting where I've been the board representative. So I wish that it were not remote, but that's the world we live in, and look forward to working with you guys for the next several years.
Well, we thank you, sir, and we know you are a veteran on the Board of Supervisors, and you'll become a veteran here pretty quick. It doesn't take long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mrs. Thornton, how about your planning services report?
I do have a few things that I wanted to mention to you. Tracy had been working on updating our statistical report, and I received a draft late this afternoon, and I'm sorry that I hadn't had a chance to send it to you in advance of this meeting, but I will get that to you so you can have a look at it. I haven't had the opportunity to add any additional information other than what she has presented in terms of numbers of plats and plans received and reviewed and approved and that kind of thing. I will say that as of May 4th, our status on plat review was current for the first time in quite a while. We had been able to catch up with plat reviews. A few more have come in, but we have made good progress there in the past few weeks. We recently approved the site plan for Twin Lakes Villas Phase 1. Locust Grove West Storage Facility is poised. That site plan is just about ready for approval. We have received a special use permit application for a luxury, I guess I would call it a luxury campground. We haven't completed the review of that submittal, but it certainly, won't be ready for public hearing any earlier than the July 2nd meeting date. I will mention to you also that
Can I interrupt you just for a second? The
Yeah.
July the 2nd meeting date we need to chat about. So I think does not hit us right in the middle of the 4th of July holiday. So
yeah,
we don't really want, I don't
I
really
guess
want
the
to.
holiday will be observed on July 3rd, that Friday.
Okay, I don't, I mean, I don't know what the other commissioner's thought is, but that may not be a very good date to put a public hearing for the public as well as the commission.
Well, I had actually thought that perhaps you all would have some conversation about that date, given the calendar.
Right. Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't want you to guarantee them that because I don't think that one will work for us.
No, I haven't.
we
No,
don't-
actually, I haven't guaranteed anything as far as a date. And as I said, we haven't
Okay.
actually reviewed the application for completeness yet. I had a
Okay.
couple of pre-application meetings with the applicant, but I don't have that new submittal with me right now. So no, I haven't guaranteed a date yet. I did
Thank
want to
you.
mention, for informational purposes, I did sit in this afternoon on a webinar hosted by the Virginia Association of Counties relating changes to legislation that were adopted in the past General Assembly session related to utility scale solar development. So I will be presenting or providing to you and I imagine the board as well, sort of a summary of some of those changes and how they might impact our processes going forward. We have had some inquiries from two potential new solar developers for the county, and you will probably remember that a couple of years ago, a special use permit application was approved for Madison Solar, which is now Cypress. Well, I guess the project got sold, but Cypress Creek Renewables is who is pursuing that project. So they have done some work. So their special use permit, approval is still valid. But I think that the main effort on that project is not projected to begin until late summer or early fall. So the any new changes would pertain to, obviously, to new applications. So we haven't received anything yet, but as I said, we have had a couple of inquiries, and one of those companies has met with staff twice over the course of the past year. So I don't really know quite how soon we might potentially receive another solar project application. No, I think,
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's what I have for you right now.
Any questions based on the report?
What, two quick
Any
questions.
commissioner
Ms. Thornton.
comments? I'm sorry.
I just had two quick
ahead,
questions.
Mr.
Could
Capel.
you, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Twin Lakes Phase 1, could you remind me where Twin Lakes is, please?
It's off Germanna Highway in the
Okay.
Germanna Wilderness area. It was
Okay, great.
55 plus housing development.
Right, I remember now. Yep, thank you. And on the luxury campground, can you tell us which district that is being proposed in?
I believe, as I said, I don't have that material with me. I believe it's District 2. I want to say District 2, but I'm not certain. I'll have to get that material and get back with you on that.
Sure. Yeah, just curious. Thank you very much.
No further questions. Any comments? We're gonna start at District 5 this time. You have any other comments, Mr. Hutchinson?
No comments.
Miss Julie, do you have any comments? District 4?
I do, but it's just a question about the next meeting. Is that in person?
No, it's not. I think the June 10th date is what the current order runs through. So I don't think the June 4th will be outside of that scope. Is that right, Mr. Lansing?
Outside what scope? I'm sorry.
The June 10th, the governor's executive order. She asked would the
yeah,
next
we'll
meeting
still
be in
be-
person?
Yeah, we'll still be under a state of emergency at that point. So we're still able to meet online if we meet June 10th.
Okay, so we'll be voting in the next meeting, and we can do that electronically
Yes.
on that special use permit. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
We
That's
will
all
vote
my questions.
electronically. Okay, I have no further comments or questions. Mr. Yancey, you?
None whatsoever. I did have the chance to visit the site and enter it off of Wolf Walk Lane. That's a pretty narrow entrance. So therefore, controlling who can enter the property, especially when you get down towards the site where the fireworks are set off and where people are assembled, there is a gate there that could control the entrance of any John Q. Public people if they needed to be by stationing somebody there and/or locking that gate and only giving access to membership keys. And
Mr.
also,
Yancey,
while I was there, I did meet with two people. One of them is leasing part of the property from the Hosteters. It's John and Wanda Gofort's son, and then
Mr.
Ronnie Smith.
Yancey, Mr. Yancey?
Yeah.
Hang on to those comments until we get to that particular hearing. I don't think it's fair to make those comments now as relating to that hearing that we've already continued to the next meeting.
That's fine, sir.
Just don't delete them, but we should have it when we having those comments there. But points well taken. Any
I
other
have no
comments?
further comment. No, sir.
Mr. Capel?
You did a fine job, Mr. Chairman, virtually. Good job. That's all I got.
Thank you. We muddled through it with some notes on the sidebar here. I want to take the opportunity to thank each one for participating and also being timely. And kudos to the IT staff for helping us out tremendously and being very cordial to us. If there's nothing else, I'll solicit a motion to adjourn.
So moved if you make George visible.
We're going without George visibility. Is there a second?
I second it, Mr.
Invisible
Chairman.
George seconds that.
It's been moved and second that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, stay online virtually. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night, folks. We'll see you next
Good
time.
night.
Good night.
Sandra,
Be
take
careful,
care.
be safe.
Thank you. You too.
Yep. See you later.
All right.
Nice meeting you, Mr. Brooks and Hutch.
Nice seeing you guys. Take care and welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Thanks, Rodney.